is a highly regulated market. So an insurance company cannot adjust their rates without the approval from the California Department of Insurance. And it's a lengthy process, has to be submitted and has to be approved before they can adjust their rates. Given the recent couple of years and high inflation that we witnessed, and during COVID as well, there was a little bit of a hard time in approving rate increases for insurance companies. So cost to rebuild homes went up, cost of supplies went up, cost of labor went up, but then the insurance cost kind of remained the same. So all these companies were pretty much selling policies at a loss and not making much profit. Accompanied with the high claims rates, especially in the past few years with the fires we've had. The past couple of years, I think we had more fire damage than 20 years combined in the past. So a lot of carriers decided that this is not a good market for them to grow in. Some are canceling existing clients and not accepting new clients. Some are just not taking on new clients at the moment until their rates get approved by the state and they feel like they could charge the right amount of premium to insure a home. And it's impacting both home and auto, but homes are obviously getting more impacted. State Farm already pulled out. AAA has some restrictions. USAA some restrictions. Allstate fully pulled out. Farmers currently has a cap of a monthly policies that they sell. This month in October, they already reached their cap within 4 days. And so it kind of the initial purpose of the state to make the process the way it is to approve a rate is to look out for consumers and make sure they are protected and insurance companies not taking advantage of consumers by raising the rates, but it kind of backfired because now clients have limited options and the options that are available are extremely high, especially if they have to go through the California Fair Plan. The outlook for the next couple of years, I would say, I think there is some progress being made through the state and insurance companies. We may be seeing changes coming up end of next year, but just to keep, it is going to be safe to assume that if the market opens up, if those companies come back to the market, the rates will be at a higher rates. So expecting higher insurance costs moving forward for the next few years. I think that's going to be the only way for us to be able to go back to how things used to be. So the days with $90 a month home insurance policy or $100 a month insurance policies, I think they're going to be in the past, and we're going to see a lot higher premiums moving forward. So that's kind of the background and how we got here. What to do as a realtor. So if you're a listing or a buyer agent, some recommendations. I would recommend that you take more of an active role in helping your clients getting quotes. In the past, it's been more of you can tell your clients, hey, call who your auto currently is with, or typically, if you don't say anything, the lender kind of handles it or helps the client with insurance, whether they have a broker or just ask the client to do their own research. I would say get involved as soon as possible with insurance because depending on the property, the location, and the age, it might take upwards of 2 weeks to get a policy or a quote. I have one right now that has been pending for a week right now with underwriting review. So definitely don't wait till the last moment. You could also get quotes before your client makes an offer on a home. Just because we have limited options in the market with insurance, having an idea of what the cost looks like before they put an offer on the home and what the availability of insurance companies is helpful for them. It could also impact their debt-to-income ratio with the loan, especially high-value homes or high fire risk zones. Sometimes we can just run a quote with the address. We can do a quick dummy quote. Just if you send us the address, we can run a quote and you have an idea of what the price and what it looks like. If you're a listing agent as well, you can get a quote on your listing and provide it in your disclosures for the buyers. Let them know they already did due diligence, you run quotes, and you can give them the available options. I'm getting requests from both buyers and listing agents to get quotes. Again, before listing and before you put an offer on a home. Some of the things to keep in mind that could impact insurability is prior claims on the home. So claims with the home insurance, they follow the property. So if a prior owner had filed a water claim and a wind claim in the past few years, that could impact eligibility on the new buyer, even though the new buyer had nothing to do with it. Just because the prior home had claims, that could raise some flags. Some companies surcharge for it, so they will take it, but at an extra cost. Some will require underwriting review and approval and some documentations, and then some will automatically just say no. So that's why it's important to get early on with the quotes. Older homes also tend to be a little bit more expensive or harder to insure. Anything older than 1900 is pretty tough. And if you find something, it may not be full coverage. It may be actual cash value. So it's not, you're not fully insuring the home. So just some things to keep in mind. Homes that are not in a very good conditions, that will be utilized as a primary occupancy. Those can be, we may be able to get a policy up front, but insurance companies typically send someone out post-bind to inspect the property. If they see anything they don't like, any visible damage, any missing roof pieces, or any damage on the walls, they will cancel the policy unless the changes or renovations have been done. Older roofs, again, can be harder to insure or may have limited coverages. If there are trees that are untrimmed or too close to the main house, just keep an eye out on that as well. If you're listing or if you're a buying agent, so those could potentially be asked to be trimmed, and that can be expensive, especially if it's a bigger tree. Those can be upwards of like $5,000 to $10,000 to handle. Any questions so far? Sorry, I feel like I'm just talking at you.
No, this is a lot of good information. I've actually run into a lot of these issues myself with I'm a mortgage lender,
Hmm.
and I've had things really changed after the rainstorms in the beginning of the
Hmm.
year. I feel that's kind of when insurances started to say forget
Yeah.
California. It wasn't even the fires, although the fires were pretty bad as well. But it was just like that was kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back. Like in the beginning of the year, we had a lot of rain, and there was actually a lot of areas in California that people weren't aware of that were considered FEMA damage
Hmm.
zones. You know, because of the flooding, and it was mostly knocked over fences. Honestly, I mean,
Exactly.
my fence,
A lot of wind
my fence
claims. Yeah.
yeah, a lot of
Yeah.
them were just fences. I mean, my fence came down. I didn't put a claim. I just, I propped it back up. Whatever, no
Yeah.
biggie. But
Oh
yeah,
my gosh,
after
Raul,
that,
is your friends okay?
oh, this is hilarious. So last year, I I um I moved. Actually, I moved in the beginning of this year, right? But my house last year, the fence came down, and then the house that I moved to, the fence came down.
Wherever you go, fences are coming down.
No, it's just it was this, these rainstorms that kind of there was wind and
Yeah.
knocked over fences. But I noticed that that's when things changed, and like you said, I have a couple of lenders. Hopefully, I'll be able to get your contact information and use you as well. But yeah, I have a couple of I mean insurance companies that I go to get quotes because like you said, I mean, it does take longer. There are these issues, and a lot of realtors, if you don't do, a substantial amount of volume, you're not aware that that we have these issues, right?
That's right.
I think all the realtors really need to be on a call like this to be made aware of like, hey, like there's not that many insurance companies that are covering California, right?
Yep. Exactly. And I think that the least thing that I'm trying to kind of raise awareness about is just get involved as early as possible. You don't have to really understand all the process. Just talk to a broker, get a quote on a home before you put an offer or before you list it, or as soon as you get in contract, just so
Yeah,
you
that
have
was gonna
enough time.
be That was going to be my question as well, too,
Right.
that like for agents, what is something that they can do kind of proactively to help keep their clients informed,
Yeah.
whether they are on the buying or selling side, because that's going to be really important, especially something to keep in the back of their mind as they're conducting business, that this is an important aspect of the home buying process to keep your home protected, to keep it insured. So,
Exactly.
starting
'Cause-
as early as possible, is there anything else that you would kind of say would be important, especially should their clients raise any concerns about home insurance or anything like that?
Yeah, so from what I'm seeing lately, some realtors are putting insurance contingencies on their contract. So in my understanding, that has not been a thing, maybe even last year or earlier this year, but some, especially homes in high fire zones and high value homes, they are putting an insurance contingency on their contract, which I think is smart. And then others, and I think the best thing to do and the easiest thing to do for a realtor, you don't have to understand all the process and everything that could go wrong with insurance. But as long as you take an active role and tell your client, call someone, get a quote, or I know a broker, let me get a quote for you before we put an offer. I think that's already helping out a lot, because we all know clients don't really do a lot of stuff when we tell them to do it, and they usually wait till the last minute. Um, so just doing it for them even works too. So just like, hey, run a quote for my client. We want to know what the price looks like and if it's insurable. I think that's a really good step to take.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Okay, sorry for interrupting.
No,
Continue.
it's good. Yep. Um, Another recommendation that I have is work with a local broker. So 800 numbers are available, those insurance companies, but with this day and age, I think it's best to work with a broker and even multiple brokers, not just one, because one broker may have options that another one does not. Um, and then calling an 800 number is getting a little bit complicated, especially if you want to call back again and ask more questions. It's typically a team environment, and then you don't know who's going to answer the phone next time. So if you don't have a local broker, find someone, reach out to me. I'm happy to connect you. If you're a different area, happy to connect you with other brokers as well. But yeah, and again, maybe like one thing when you're putting an offer on a house as a realtor, just the general condition of the home is important. So if it's a good, well-maintained house, that's great. If there is debris on the property, that will be a problem. If the pool is not maintained and not filled, that is a problem. If there's a trampoline without a net around it, that's a problem as well. There's a diving board, that can be a problem. And flat roofs can also sometimes be a problem with insurance or may have less coverages.
Even certain types of dogs, I find that
Oh, yeah,
like sometimes insurance
that's right.
get feisty about.
Yeah. So some dogs, it depends on the carrier. Some will accept you as a client, but will exclude animal liability based on your dog breed. So if it's like a German Shepherd, for example, some of them will insure you, but if your dog bites someone, they're not going to cover you. Some will automatically not insure you, um, period. So they don't even want to deal any with it. So you gotta, yeah, for sure. That's a good point.
And actually, FYI, also, I know that insurance companies, after the closing, they do inspections. They do like
Hmm.
routine inspections, and they could cancel you after the fact. I've had this happen, and then
That's
you
right.
have to scramble to get like a new insurance policy. This is why it's really important, like you're mentioning that, like to have to work with a broker, because brokers have different options where it's like if you work in like with a farmer's agent, not to say anything negative about farmers, I really like them, but like a farmer's agent, like you said, 4 days into the month, they're done. They can't do any more home insurance policies.
Hmm.
So that's it. And then you're working with State Farm. Hey, guess what? They're not doing any insurance policies. So yeah, with the broker, you have several options.
Right.
To tie in, I'm a mortgage broker, so same thing. I have several options. I'm not just with one company where it's like if you don't fit our criteria, well, we could go with another one.
Yep, exactly. And then, yeah, most insurance companies do. No insurance company does pre-bind inspection. Maybe a few. Maybe if it's a super high value home, they may send someone out before they issue a policy. But typically, once you bind a policy, once you close escrow, then within a few weeks they send someone out. Sometimes just a drive-by, just an exterior. The client doesn't even know. And depending on the home and property and location, sometimes it's an interior and exterior. And again, if there's, like you mentioned, if there's anything they don't like or not well maintained, they could ask the client to fix it within a short period of time, or they just give out a flat cancellation. I had one that was ridiculous. They canceled the policy because there was like a little bit of a tree root coming on, like on the grass, and they said it's a trip hazard, and they canceled the policy. So either the client had to remove the entire tree or find a different carrier. Let's talk about the California Fair Plan a little bit as well, because I'm sure you're all hearing about it. If not, you will very soon. But that's an insurance option of last resort. It is a program back in the 80s, I believe, that was mandated by the state. It is not a state insurance. It is a private company funded by the private insurance carriers in the market based on their market share. But it is a mandated program to be put in place by the state of California. It only offers protection against mainly fire. And then the client will then have to have a second policy to cover for, it's called a DIC, difference in conditions, or supplemental, or wraparound. You hear people call it different things. But that will cover their liability, their water, their theft claims. So typically more expensive, a little bit of a harder process to work with, lengthier process, and requires 2 policies. You need both policies if you're going for the fair plan to satisfy your mortgage loan, because both will act as a one insurance policy. We see this often with high fire zones or homes that no one is willing to take in the open private market. The excess and surplus market, those are insurance carriers. Or sometimes they're called non-admitted carriers. They are out-of-state insurance companies that operate legally in whatever state they choose to. They just don't have to abide by the California Department of Insurance guidelines. So they could set their own pricing. They could set their own zip codes that they will insure. They also typically have broker fees. They have inspection fees and policy fees and taxes. And if you cancel, they have a minimum 25% that they keep. Typically at a higher rate, but most of the times a little bit less expensive than the fair plan. So it's a really good option for high fire zones, homes up in Berkeley Hills or up in, in the Hills area, anywhere where client is struggling to find an option. Only downside with them is they are not backed by the state fund. So if they go bankrupt, if there's, let's say, a really big fire, if they go bankrupt and don't have enough funds to cover the homes, then the state is not responsible to offset the difference. But typically the ones we work with are backed by an A-rated insurance companies with their financial stability. So they usually are on the safer side to deal with. But yeah, so that's the non-admitted surplus market. And some of the common exclusions with just a standard home insurance policy, earthquake is never included, and flood as well is not included. So those things, sometimes clients don't seem to be aware of it, but those are standalone policies that can be added at any time. And that's kind of all I have at the moment. So we can open it up for questions and discussion. And if you have anything you can add as well from your experience.
That was great. Does anyone have any questions? Donna, is there anything that you've kind of seen in terms of your interactions with agents on the buying or selling side over in Mount Shasta?
The only thing we're really coming across is not being able to get fire insurance besides the California Fair Plan for our people here. And it's probably due to the limited number of insurance agents we actually have up here, and nobody wants to call, some, big conglomerate
Right.
to try to find the insurance. But, if I had a database of insurance agents I could call and say, hey, we need a quote, that would be great.
Now you have one on your list.
I had a question. So what insurance carriers do you find that you're using more commonly right now?
So I'm working with a few at the moment. One of them is called, you probably heard of the Bamboo. I don't know if
Yes,
you've come
yes.
across. They're
They mainly cover what I find newer properties, and I guess newer properties in California is like 1975 or newer.
Yeah, it depends on the property and location, but they're in a growth mode. They've shut down a lot of zip codes that they don't want to deal with, and they made it very hard to take a property that has any prior claim intentionally. So pretty much they don't want anything with a prior claim. Um, their review period is 3 to 5 weeks if you have a claim on your property. So that's pretty much their way of saying go somewhere else. But if a property is kind of no issues, good conditions, they have been pretty solid. Older homes they will take, but I've noticed that they're pretty expensive with older homes. I have another carrier called Pacific Coastal. They are very competitive in terms of rates, but they're very strict underwriting. Delos is also a good non-admitted carrier with a very reasonable pricing. And then the Fair Plan, and then Aegis. Aegis has been good with DIC wraparound.
Nice. Have you
Yep.
used Stillwater? I have an agent that
Yes,
always okay. They always send
Stillwater's
me there.
great. They
Yeah.
pulled out. They pulled out though, or at least they pulled out from the broker market back in January.
Got it.
They may be available maybe through some tenured agents or maybe online only, but to my understanding, they removed all of our access with them back in January. Stillwater was great.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
they were amazing. They were like they
yeah,
were cheaper than everybody.
yeah, and that's why they pulled out.
Cool, good information. Thanks so much.
Yeah, of course.
All right, we're about nearing the end of our room session today. So, does anyone have any last minute questions, comments, discussion points before we wrap this up?
Is there a way to? Do you want to share my contact with everyone in the room, or do you want me
Yeah,
to?
I can
I don't
send out
know.
an email
Okay,
afterwards, sharing out your contact information. That's no problem at all.
perfect. And I can be reached out anytime if you have any questions or want to run anything by me, text, call, or email. Um,
Absolutely.
feel free to reach out.
All right.
Cool.
Well, if there's nothing
Awesome.
else, then we'll conclude for today. So thank you all so much for joining us on this chilly Thursday, and we'll see you guys next time. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you soon. Thank you all so
Awesome.
much.
Thank you. Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
Bye.
you.
Thank you.